Hello, my peeps, and welcome back to Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves. We are 2/3 of the way through Season 2, coming up steadily on episode 100. I will let you know what is in plan for that when it occurs. I am still your host, Ike, and before I make any more weird sounds or ominous notions, I'd like to just take a moment and say thanks for being here and giving this pod a listen. It means a lot to me that you chose to use your precious time and give me and my guest your ears. And now if you still have the bandwidth after you've enjoyed the episode, please share it with someone who you think would like it, if you liked it. Or, just subscribe yourself if you already haven't. That would mean a lot. So this is going to probably end up sounding like a rushed intro because I am a little bit behind and packing up rapidly to head out to my first live Magic tournament since November of last year. So very excited, going up to the MPX in Oakland. Hopefully going to take some selfies with past guests and great friends who I don't see that frequently, as we are like 6 to 8 hours apart now. But yeah, more on that later. Check out it won't be in this episode because I don't think I'll get up in time. It'll the next one. Hopefully we'll have linked the Instagram. I'm still having trouble figuring out the easiest way to find the TikTok. There will be a link, obviously, in the video to TikTok. And you can, once you click follow me there, or, just keep appraised on my Twitter at @LikeIkes. We post a little special segment, usually a couple episodes, or a couple days in advance of what's coming up. A little teaser, if you will. So keep following along and double checking what's in the doobly-doo. I'm actually headed up to the tournament up in Oakland with actually 2 friends and guests of the podcast, Dan Silver and Lafayette. It's going to be a blast. We're going to hopefully have a lovely bajillion hour, hopefully only 6, car ride up to the old bay, as my dad would like to say. I finally got new shoes that worked. I guess I haven't talked about this on the podcast, but I have been trying to get new shoes because mine are, I'm starting to see the tops on the bottoms, of, as it were. The rubber is rubbing so thin that the fabric that is the shoe itself is now creeping through the sole on like all of them. So needed new shoes and got ones that I think will do the bill. Fit the bill, do the trick. There we go. But obviously enough, they are old versions or new versions of old shoes. So I'm not like, I haven't found new shoes I've liked. I found newer shoe versions of the same shoe I'm wearing, which is kind of funny. And, just goes to track. You like what you like. But they work and they feel nice, which is great. And they don't have holes in the bottom. So, we'll take it. Lastly, before we get to the guest, I find myself ending up listening to more talks and seeing biz about ChatGPT and AI programs. I feel like I'm getting more gray hair and less years of my life seeing it. And I'm not sure if that's correct, if I'm overreacting, what it is. But I'm curious to hear, anybody have any opinions on this? Anybody, feel the same way? Hit me up on Twitter at @LikeIkes or email me at passionpeevespodcast@gmail.com. I'd be curious to, get your input on that. So this week we have a great friend and awesome guest in Erin BARICH. She works at Riot Games. She's an awesome person and has fantastic stories to tell. So please, stick around and enjoy this great episode with this great guest. And I'll leave the rest to past me. Take it away. Hello, folks. Today with me, my guest is a game designer at Riot Games, has apparently never drank an energy drink, collector of fine hats, I'll be the judge of that, SCG Invitational Champion, and the most humble person alive, it's Erin BARICH.
It's true. My humbleness knows no bounds. You're all very lucky to be able to listen to me.
Well, in your humble opinion, what's your favorite movie line to quote?
Oh God, favorite movie line? So this is tough. I don't actually watch a lot of movies or quote movies. I'm not a big TV or movie person. I figured we were going to get into that at some point. So I actually don't have an answer.
La gasp. Well, perhaps do you have a humble answer for first concert, best concert?
My first concert was, I think it was Weird Al, actually.
Nice.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. I think it was his Mandatory Fun tour. Maybe that wasn't my first concert. My brain says there was another one before that, but that was like my first one I remember. Best concert I ever went to was definitely I went to Streetlight Manifesto at the House of Blues in Dallas.
Nice.
That was really great. We were there for a team event, Magic team event. So I was there with my brother and our best friend, and we all went together. Super great show. It was awesome.
That's so awesome. I'm trying to remember. Is there like some kerfuffle with that band? Did they like break up or something like that?
They never broke up. They're still making music, supposedly. They like announced a new album, I think last year sometime. They had problems with their label. Where okay. I think they broke away from their label and are now drowning in debt. But
no.
Different problem.
Yeah, problem, but not the breakup problem yet.
Right. I think they love what they're doing. They just being a musician and being successful and making money is impossible. So yeah.
Well, speaking of success, since you are such a successful person, SCG Invitational Champion, game designer at Riot. Do you still have a poor person luxury that you still enjoy to this day?
Oh, almost certainly. I definitely grew up relatively poor. I love Chili Mac, just the cheapest chili can you can buy and the cheapest macaroni and cheese you can get, the like 65-cent one. I just put those two together. If I'm lucky, I'll have a little onion on top, and that's the best.
Do we slice up a little hot dog?
I've never been the hot dog person. I think the chili does enough. I know that. So those are different things. So you can do mac and cheese and hot dogs. That's a different poor person meal, right? But I always preferred the chili. So maybe the chili was a little more of the splurge because that tended to cost a little more than the pack of cheap hot dogs. I will say I have some standards.
For $1.50.
Yeah,
some standards. She says.
I remember growing up, and my mom bought the like red tinted hot dogs that were super duper cheap. I don't remember the brand name, but they were the cheapest bottom of shelf hot dogs, and they were inedible. No one in the house would eat them. They ended up getting thrown away. So hot dogs were actually the one thing that the house would kind of splurge on because the bottom dollar hot dogs were so bad. So
I love that tidbit. That's so juicy. What is your favorite non-exercise thing that you have to force yourself to do, but are glad once you've accomplished it?
It's probably literally something like doing the dishes or grocery shopping. I hate to do things just in general, but like, man, anytime I stand up and go like fix a thing that I just been dreading, I just feel great. Just feel awesome afterwards. And it's like not fair. But
sorry, it's not fair. The best part.
It's just true though, right? It's not fair because it's your body tells you, your brain's like, yeah, you don't want to get up and do that thing, and you fight yourself for like 2 hours. I mean, I'm doing it right now. I probably should be doing my dishes. Instead, I'm talking to you, and it's like, you know what? Right when this is done, I'm gonna do my dishes. I know I'm not, but 5 hours from now, when I'm done dreading it, they're gonna get done, and I'm gonna feel great.
I love that you know yourself so much that you're like, look, afterwards I'm going to do this. I'm not, but I'm telling myself
when you need to be in tune with your dance partner, and when your dance partner is yourself, it's very easy.
Speaking of dance partners, who's someone you've never met, alive or dead, that you'd like to have lunch with?
The first thing that comes to mind, I guess, is on the topic. It's probably some musician. I would maybe say, I believe it's Thomas is the lead for Streetlight. I really like his lyrics and his songs, and they're very interesting, and I kind of wonder where they come from. And I think talking to him would be really great.
That was so cool. Where would you take him to lunch?
Trying to think of a place that's good to to sit down and chill. So it's somewhere with drinks, probably a good place to hang out, or just like nothing fancy. I don't know, some type of cafe, just where you can cafe with maybe liquor and Look, if I'm meeting this person, I assume they're just like, who is this person that wants to talk to me? It's probably like a mandatory fan thing they signed up for. So I got to make them, help them want to talk.
I love the amount of game theory that's gone into this. It's fantastic.
That's everything, all the time. It's painful sometimes.
Well, speaking of painful, I'll give you a hypothetical. You're going out to a party. You want to look radical. Other than your normal attire, what accessory do you add to your ensemble?
Oh, it is definitely some type of very gaudy necklace. I think necklaces are one of those things that it's easy. People will look at them very clearly because they look at you. And also just like having a necklace that matches with your outfit very well feels like the big step into kind of luxury to me when I'm trying to look very nice.
If you were a condiment, which do you think you'd be?
So, I think this counts. It's like a combination answer.
Okay.
I would be, you ever been to like a Zaxby's or a Cane's?
Sure.
Is this chicken finger places? I would be the chicken finger sauce of those places.
Yeah, Raisin Cane sauce. Love it.
Yeah, just like one of those. They're like a mix of like mayo, ketchup, and pepper and like stuff. But man,
it's like Southern spicy Thousand Island for those of you who have not had the glorious experience. Sans the relish.
The stuff is awesome. It's so good. It actually goes well in like everything, and it's so bad for you.
Oh yeah, it's cancer.
That's me. I'm just so bad for you, but you love me.
I disagree. I think you're great for me. You're at least great for my laughter muscles today. That is for sure. Do you have a life hack you'd like to share with the class to improve their daily living?
Get up and do your dishes. No. Yeah, life hacks are a weird one for me. I think my life hack of the past year is just like, man, Roombas are OP. That's not like a real life hack, but I've not like had a life hack of something that's the traditional style.
Pushing that Roomba objective, I think that's fair. A lot of people don't. They're like, whatever, I can just do it. It's like, yeah, but are you going to?
Well, I can't. I can't make myself do those things. So like having something that like makes those things easier. You don't realize how much, at least so I moved to LA about a year ago. And the thing I didn't realize about LA is just how dusty everything is all the time. Coming from Mississippi, that's just not true. But here, if I don't sweep for a week, my apartment just gets covered in stuff all over the floor. It's
because there's not as much moisture in the air as there in Mississippi. Nothing gets dusty in Mississippi, gets moldy.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe this is better, but it's definitely not something problem. I'm used to.
Exactly, yeah. Is the moldiness was the devil This one's the devil you're just getting acquainted with.
Right? Always how it is.
And he's a dusty bitch. That doesn't sound like the best thing I've ever said as I said it. Oh, what life lesson do you wish you learned sooner?
Oof. It's okay to like things. I think that's it. Yeah, it's okay to like things. I definitely was like I think this is pretty common. I was pretty angsty, but I was like the angsty, super self-aware growing up. So I was like angsty, but thought I was better because I didn't like things that some people did or whatever, or I would hide that I liked things that were like maybe I didn't think were cool, and that was just really silly. And in some ways, like this goes kind of deep on it, but like being trans and like liking feminine things or whatever is a thing I like forced myself not to do for a while growing up, right? So that's it. There was just like at some point where you start to accept that those things are a part of you, and that's that's just kind of how it is. it's good to know that earlier rather than later, because it definitely makes like growing up and growing through school and stuff way harder.
Totally. It's interesting. You just kind of reminded me of a life lesson I learned. The way you said that, with it's okay to like things, because for me, I have a very polarizing, being like mildly autistic. I have this like polarizing thing where I either love something or I hate it, and it's good to be reminded it's okay to be kind of in the middle. Like not everything has to be 100 or 0. And so that's you reminded me of a different life lesson with that. But that's also very true. It's that idea, and I think it's something that's gone away, but I totally know what you mean, of growing up in the 90s. That idea of liking something was lame. I don't know if you had that growing up in Mississippi, but out west, I very much remember like liking, like being a fan of something was considered lame. Putting in your best effort was try-harding, and that was considered lame. And I'm very happy to see, from what I've seen anyway, of is it Gen Z, or I don't remember, the generation after millennial, whoever that is. It's really nice to see that they're embracing this, somebody going deep and hard and trying their best at something, and not, even if it's bizarre and publicly considered kind of weird, to not be shamed, but be like, good job. Like, oh, are you a fan of that too? No, but good for you for like pushing and trying that and giving it your all. That's something to be lauded, not something to be like, like wrinkled your nose and scorned at for like loving something.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think there is definitely a shift away from that, which is good as the generations go on. I had a little bit of that growing up, because I was growing up in the early aughts. No, less the 90s, but some of that carried over, and I don't know. I was also just the type of kid who turned my nose at people who liked, popular music. Like,
I remember
how
that.
dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you be popular and enjoy things that other people enjoy?
Those mainstream
That's
losers.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how you end up playing Magic.
Fact. Absolutely fact. Now you can't do that anymore, though. If you do Magic's that now, popular. You would. Yeah, you'd have to turn away from that. No, I remember that. This idea of like, and I mean, the quality is one thing, but people would just hate Hot Topic because there was a lot of them. People would hate Starbucks because everybody went to it. There's plenty of reasons to hate both of those, for the record, in my opinion. However, the reason to hate them is not that people go to them, or that, some people enjoy them, or there's a lot of them. That is not a reason to hate something. You can hate it because the coffee's shit and it's just like fueled with sugar. You can hate it because the quality's bad of the shirts and they don't pay their employees enough and they play the same 8 songs every hour. Those are reasons to hate the place, but you get to hate them because like, oh, people like them is just absurd.
Yeah, I think it was part of that era and that generation. I speak as someone who kind of didn't live through it as much, but it's, every generation has its own way to rebel, and the way that those generations kind of rebelled was hating everything else. Yeah. And I think one of the really positive changes in some ways is, the new generation, or the young youth these days, the rebellion way is to unabashedly love yourself instead of hate everything else. And that's really great.
So would you be comfortable talking about, you talked about becoming transitioning. Is that something you'd be open to discussing?
Yeah.
So when did you know, when did you get the first inkling that, and apologies if I step in something here, but that you weren't being yourself by being who you were from your birth, basically?
Yeah, so that's always really weird. That question is like, it's so hard to point to anything in particular, because it's just these things that like tickle in over time, or like you just have these emotions or these spots. I think there's like a really weird story that I don't know if I made it up, because I think it happened when I was like 3.
Okay.
So who knows, that could just be whatever.
Let's get into the lore of Aaron Barish.
Yeah, really deep lore. I remember, so I have an older sister and an older brother. And we used to live in this apartment complex when I was that little. And my my older sister was going to her friends at one of the apartments, and I went with her for some reason or another. I was like, as I said, 2 or 3.
Mm.
But I remember they like threatened me with dressing me up in like her friend's like baby girl like doll clothes.
Yeah.
And I, for some reason, I have the memory of like I was like pretending to be scared, and I was like, man, I actually wish they would. That looks cute or something. So I don't know how much of that I like made up or what.
I love it either way.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that like even if I didn't make it up, even if I did make it up or like whatever, the fact that my brain has created that memory is very interesting, or like I think has some meaning.
Yeah.
I think like first time I ever started like really thinking about it was kind of in early middle school, in like 6th grade or whatever. I lived with I guess I'd say close to 8th grade, 7th grade. I lived with my mom. At the time we were living in a FEMA cottage that was being rented out as a place to live in a RV park. So it had 1 room or 2 rooms, 1 bed, 1 living room. My mom slept on the couch. She gave me the bed because she was an amazing mom. And that was like the first time where I was like really alone as a child for a lot. Not from like my mom. Me and my mom never were. My mom was always a great mom. We were like kind of close, but we never like spent a ton of time together or had the same interests, you know.
Sure.
My mom liked watching a ton of reality TV kind of things and cops shows, and I was, you know, a kid who wanted to play video games and run outside or whatever. So I just had a lot of time to myself and thinking, and that was like the first time I think we had a functioning computer. It was not a good computer. It was awful. It barely worked, but that was like definitely the biggest luxury that we had was this computer, and you know, I was able to connect to things online and see things and learn things that I never had before. And I was getting to that age where like, you know, you're kind of understanding things and words and all the, you know, there's like, you know, there's all these things you don't know, but also you know everything.
The Dunning-Kruger effect.
Right. So you go out of your way to kind of just look at stuff, or you click on things that are cool, and you have this unabashed sense of like, I can look at anything. It doesn't matter. It won't hurt me. I'll just go wherever I want on this internet thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, you end up in weird places and spooky places, blah, 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 blah. But you also learn a lot about a lot of things. So, yeah, that was an interesting time.
When did you first formally come out as trans?
That was about 4 or 5 years ago. I don't remember the exact date, which is interesting because a lot of trans people do. They like remember the date, or they track it.
It's called like I've heard it called the rebirth day, or some assimilation thereof.
People call it whatever or anything. It's just, you know, there's an emotional attachment to it for some people of like, hey, this is when I feel like I really started kind of living. But that wasn't it for me, at least. Yeah, I like fully came out. Twitter posts started going by she her and doing all those things. But at that time, I had been kind of quietly transitioning and stuff for like a year before that. The day it happened, as most things in my life, things only ever occur when there's like a break in the system of my head, where it's like, all right, just for some reason I had the emotion. I was like, all right, I'm fed up of dealing with it. I'm just putting it out there. Let's go. And then I did it, and I was like, holy shit, Aaron, what did you do? And it was like, man, was I ready? I don't know. Well, it's there now. Fuck it. And that's how a lot of things in my life kind of happened. Is that style of things going together. But
yeah, you gotta have the gusto to throw it out there. So it takes a lot of. I feel like I have a lot of the similar things when it comes to. It's kind of like knowingly getting on a roller coaster that you control the throttle of. To like get it up to full speed, you kind of have to go and just shove the accelerator and just hold on for dear life.
Yeah, it is like that. I will say, like, at that point I was already out to like my close family, my mom, my brother, my sister, not to my dad, but that was also like weird. That's something we could get into, but it's like not important to this story.
Okay.
But yeah, and so they already knew, and you know, I was with my partner at the time. I was actually dating two people. I'm polyamorous. It was like a really interesting situation with all of that. But the amount of like positive response I got from people that I never would have expected was actually really heartwarming. There were like people that I
Aw.
roughly knew through magic, or who were definitely just like kind of loud Southern folk, which is, a bit of a stereotype, but also I think it goes against stereotype that a lot of those people would message me and be like, hey, I don't understand what you're going through, but I really hope you can be happy.
Yep.
I'm here for you. Let me know if people give you shit. And so
That's
I got a lot of those, and that was really cool.
that's one of the things that I am so glad to hear, because I've got some family in the South, I've got some friends in the South, and there is this reputation of like dumb, like misogynistic, racist, like it's like the worst of society lives down there. It's like, I mean, yeah, they live everywhere though, and like there are people there that are lovely, that are caring, that are very intelligent. Like just because of what you see on the TV, especially like living out here in LA, there's so much. I don't know if you've run into this, but there's so much kind of like othering of like the middle and southern part of our country to a unfair degree, I believe. But
Yeah, it's definitely true. And I think there are, as far as percentages go, probably more people in the South that are like not open-minded, just because
sure.
there's kind of more ruralness to
Yep.
urbanness and things of that nature. I I have a tangential story talking about. I don't think I've ever made the connection just how shitty this comment was that was made to me, because at the time I just kind of laughed about it.
Mm-hmm.
And this was 5, 6 years ago now, I guess. I was playing a Magic Pro Tour. It was like the last round or something. We were playing for min cash. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But me and my opponent were introducing each other. We were like talking, and he was just doing like the really basic, hi, my name is blah 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 blah. Where are you from? Kind of talk, and
Yep.
he ends up asking me where I'm from after we've been chatting, and I said, well, I'm from South Mississippi along the Gulf Coast, and he like pauses for a second. He goes, "You don't sound like you're from Mississippi," and I laughed and moved on. But kind of reflecting on that, I like wasn't sure if that was a compliment or not at the time. And the fact that I now think it was a compliment, but also know that that is like being very stereotypically shitty about like Mississippi and the people there is kind of rough looking back on that interaction.
That's interesting, because and it may a lot of it depends on why you're saying what you're saying, right? But for me, I also agree that you don't sound like you're from Mississippi, but I don't mean that in a Mississippians sound stupid or you sound more eloquent than they do. It's just I've known people from Mississippi, like playing on the Pro Tour, playing at Grand Prix, and you don't have that twang that I've experienced in conversation.
Sure.
So that's interesting, but I totally see what you mean. There is definitely that interpretation is very valid. That is one of those ones that the subtext of some compliments is very derogatory towards the source, but we don't.
Yeah.
I don't know about
I don't
them,
know
but I don't
exactly
think
what this
about it.
person meant.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
sure. But it's one of those things that definitely I didn't think about how it could be taken at the time. Maybe I've
Mm-hmm.
added some other things to it. Because there definitely are people that are on the play in the Pro Tour, and people know that really do have strong accents. I have a Louisiana boy, Jody Keith.
Oh yeah, love
Everyone knows Jody,
him.
and that guy sounds as New Orleans as he can be.
Yeah.
He is the most New Orleans sounding individual I've ever met. He was a New Orleans taxi driver for a bunch of years,
Yeah.
and he bathes in it. He loves it.
Oh
He
yeah.
loves being that way. So it's he is just so unabashedly
Yeah.
NOLA Louisiana.
Yeah.
It's great.
Oh,
So
I love Jody. Shout out to Jody for being Jody. So back to your story. You come out. It sounds like your family was all welcoming arms, which is a rarity in these days, sadly. But am I getting that picture correct? That you came out and they were like
yeah,
loving. Oh,
yeah.
that's
My
so
my
beautiful.
family was good. My family was always so. My mom, I love her to death. She is not the sharpest knife in the chandelier. You take that's an embarrassing thing to say. I think I got that quote from the show Reba because my mom used to watch that show.
That's I'm writing that down. Sharpest knife. They are not the sharpest knife in the chandelier. Continue, please.
So that's but I love her. She definitely moves with her heart. But she was a great mom, and she raised 3 very smart children. My sister, my brother, and I are all like definitely above rate, and we're pretty welcoming, open-minded family, and that was always the case growing up, and that was really great. So yeah, coming out to all of them was fairly easy. My brother was pretty like nonchalant about it because he's kind of weird. He's also like definitely he's not very very good at conversation. So his response was like, all right, cool, let me know if I can help you. Finger guns, kind of. Yeah.
That's so great.
My mom's biggest thing was like, she was like sad, but she was sad for me because she knew how hard things could be. So that was like a pretty interesting response. Yeah.
Random aside, I'm trying to remember the name of this mediocre as shit Thanksgiving movie. I don't remember what it's called. It's like, is it the Family? It's not the Family Stone. Maybe it's the Family Stone. I don't know. It's some movie where Sarah Jessica Parker comes home to somebody's for Christmas or Thanksgiving, and the family's getting together, and the mom goes like, she's got a gay son. She's like, oh, I wish all my kids were gay. And Sarah Jessica Parker, being the outsider that can't help but put her foot in her mouth, goes, you don't mean that. And everybody's like, oh, she's like, I mean, their life is just harder than everybody else's. That would be like so cruel. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, like, this is like what your mom is experiencing. She's like, I love you, I'm happy for you, but also like, fuck, you have set yourself a very steep climb. And it's like, yeah, she was concerned for you as well as much as she was happy, it sounds like, which is smart and loving to the most like strongest extent.
Yeah, definitely. It's like a step past, kind of. It is not just I'm hearing your words and I'm happy for you. It's I'm hearing your words and I'm trying to understand what that actually means.
Yeah. And she cares about you so much that she's looking to your future. She's not only looking at you like how you feel now. She's looking to like what's going to happen to her child. She wants to take care of you, make sure you're okay. That's just love in its most beautiful form. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. You didn't change your name when you came out?
I didn't. There's a couple of reasons to that. Partially because Aaron is like fairly gender neutral, so that's good. Also because I was like, I never hated my name or like felt like that was a thing that caused me any type of pain. And my name was a brand that was worth something in Magic. And it's just like the amount of annoyance and pain that would be like changing that, and then also the effort of changing names on a bunch of documents is a bunch of pain.
Driver's license, yeah.
So it's just kind of, it was easier or better for me to just kind of leave it, especially because just a normal conversation, no one will ever question it. You just say, my name is Aaron. People are like, cool, Aaron, yeah, that's great. That works either way. And they move on.
Neat.
Yeah. So just easy road.
Well, thank you for letting us go down that pathway. That was very special. Now to something that really matters. What's your favorite non-traditional curse word?
I have a good one. I'm not sure it's anyone else's. It might be. So mine it's Gad Burstinit.
Oh, spell.
So I don't know how to spell it. I guess it's GADBERSTINIT is kind of it. I could actually find it because I got this from playing a video game growing up. I got this from playing The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. So in the Shivering Isles DLC, you go to the City of Madness, and one of the people there can't speak. Their words come out as like gobbledygook. and you have to find something to translate it, or so you can understand what they're saying. And the guy is like goodbye or greeting, or one of them is he just says "God burst in it," and I always thought it sounded like a curse.
Yeah.
So that's just
God burst in it.
Right. So I just whenever something is just like slightly upsetting, that's just what goes through my head, and sometimes like mumble it to myself. And I don't know, it's just been that way for as long as I can remember since I played that game now. It's weird.
So to paint you with a little bit of a brush, the South is relatively known for not swearing, that kind of Southern hospitality, religious Bible Belt biz. Was that?
Oh, sorry. You can keep that laugh in. Yeah, no, that's not true.
Okay. Well, I wasn't saying that was true. I was saying like that's what people, that's this idea that people have. I was wondering if that was apparently I'm just way off base.
There are some people. So I think that's like an older generation thing, like
sure.
Your grandparents now. But there's a lot more people, especially when I was, in the area, people I grew up in. So growing up in South Mississippi, I grew up primarily along the Gulf Coast, which is a tourist area full of casinos. And bars and restaurants and stuff. So it was like not a party area, but people would go out and drink and karaoke and be rambunctious, I guess, and curse and yell. And I mean, definitely playing Magic in that area growing up. All those, folks, guys would yell and be rambunctious and curse. And, that was super duper common. So you definitely, it was one of those things you don't say it around your granny. And you make sure you put on your Sunday dress when you go to the family dinner. But the second you're out of there, you tear that shit off and you just start cursing and singing to the worst, whatever. Yeah. So definitely kind of a two worlds divide thing. Those things do exist, but it's definitely
But you would be able to say "Gad burst in it" around Meemaw.
Yeah, that's true.
What's your favorite meal to make just for yourself, assuming cost and time are not relevant factors?
It's probably something really, really simple. I actually just really enjoy making like a good soup. Like I would say like a tortellini soup with a bunch of just like tomatoes and spinach and tomato based chicken stock kind of thing. It's not complicated, really simple stuff. I just enjoy pasta and I enjoy soups, and it's very warm and comforting.
Just as a soup should be.
That's right. I've never had a cold soup, but if someone tried to serve me one, I would be upset.
They're going to catch it with their face. For me, I'm just like, here. I'm sorry, sir. You seem to have misplaced this. This goes in the microwave before it comes to me. Or preferably back in the pot, whichever, but this is not the right temperature. You missed a step from taking it to the fridge to my plate. It needs to stop in a heating reservoir before it's handed to me.
Yeah, it's the American way. We only take hot soups.
Exactly. We don't believe in gazpacho. It's not a real thing. Who would you want to play you in a movie of your life? You can pick the time period of the actor or actress and the time period of your life that is being portrayed.
So this goes back to I don't actually watch a ton of movies or TV. So like naming actors and actresses, impossible. I'm bad with the names and faces normally, but especially for that. But I do have the answer of like, I think there's like like the time period of my life. There's like two that I think are interesting. There's like the time period of there was a point where the trans stuff kind of started happening in middle school, towards like from that point until I won the SCG Invitational. And like a little bit past that, I think is like pretty interesting. I was dealing with a lot of that trans stuff at the time, and I had moved to Orlando with my girlfriend right before the Invitational, and I moved there almost broke. I had like no money. Moving there cost all my money, and I didn't go to college. I had like kind of started, but like was sad. I'm not into college. I didn't even go to any classes.
Yeah.
So I just like had no real plan, no real anything. I was like, well, I love my girlfriend. I'm going to go over there and I'm going to get a whatever job. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But I booked the flight to the SCG Invitational the week I got there. So I would move, and then the next weekend I would fly out to the SCG Invitational in Roanoke, which when I booked the flight, I was not qualified for. I was
Vision board.
Yeah, I was 3 SCG Invitational points short, and there was one event I could go to. I could drive to SCG Knoxville, Tennessee, or something like that, somewhere up in Tennessee. Might have been Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And no one in my area wanted to go, so I drove the 7 hours by myself. And to get 3 points, I just needed to day 2 the Open, or top 32 one of the classics on the weekend. So it's like super easy theoretically.
Hardly an inconvenience.
Yeah. And I went and I day 2'd the Open. Everything was fine, and I got my points.
I was really hoping for a bigger story there, where it's
no stress on that.
Missed the day 2, and then had to do this and that, and the no, it's just like it was hardly an inconvenience.
Yeah, so that was the last event before the Invitational. Thankfully, it went really easy, because if not, the story, maybe that part of the story is better. But the Invitational, my flight is like the morning of. I fly in, I'm exhausted. Just like I don't really test. I'm buying cards the day of. I'm not prepared. I'm like building my deck, my modern deck, at the event at the start of the morning. Literally picking what cards I want to play. I don't know. I just played my deck a lot. I don't know. It all worked out. Into the weekend, I was carrying a trophy, and suddenly I went from being flat broke to having $20,000. I was like, holy shit!
So this happened over the course of how many weeks?
The Knoxville, and then the move, and then the Envy. So that was like 3 week total.
Oh my god, I would watch the shit out of that movie. Go from like I gotta move, gotta be with my girlfriend. How do I qualify for this? Like you could have like a timer, because you bought the ticket for the Invitational before you moved, right?
Right. So I bought it.
Oh my god, it's such a great ticking clock. Also,
yeah,
that's so awesome. It's so cinematic. That's so great.
It really is, and because of that, I spent that money. I decided, well, I'm going to spend the rest of this year playing Magic, just seeing what I can do, streaming, blah blah blah. I wrote some articles, and I did enough to keep it going, and
So you got a job for how long until you quit the job that you just got because you needed a job?
I didn't get a job yet. That was the thing, because I went to this. My plan was to fly and go to the Invitational, and then when I got back, I would figure it out.
Oh, okay.
So I had no job. Thankfully, I didn't just like get hired immediately.
It would have been kind of better to get hired and then I'll be back after the I get hired, come back, like do the training, get paid for it, come back, like sorry, I don't need this job anymore.
Yeah. But yeah, that moment led to me having the opportunity to do everything I did the next couple of years, and that led to me getting the job I now have at Riot. So definitely, there's so a very
insane.
Very focal point of my life is like that time span.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh my, look, we're gonna talk life rights after this. We'll get you a movie deal. That's amazing. That legitimately, that is an awesome story. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's just I have a lot of stories in my life from just kind of winging it and things working out. It's kind of wild. Very lucky.
That's the name of the winging it, the Aaron BARICH story.
Yep, there you go.
Well, this is not going to be nearly as exciting, but what's a job that at some point in your life you wanted to pursue but are very glad you didn't get?
School teacher, actually. When I was growing up, I really thought about wanting to be a teacher. I don't know if that's like common for students, or I was always like a good student growing up.
Yeah.
I was like the straight A or AB student who liked reading and, was like pretty well liked by my teachers. I was always, good and listened. And I just liked learning in school, and I liked my teachers generally. And it's like, being able to teach other people was really cool. So that's something I almost did pretty far. I almost I did sign up for college courses with the idea that I was going to go into education.
Mm-hmm.
And then my high school was really cool. I went to Gulfport High, and they were like kind of leading edge for Mississippi. That was just like the public school in the Gulfport area, and they had a teacher education class where they would teach you about teaching, and I would spend one day a week going to one of the elementary schools to help teach kids at the elementary schools while I was in high school. So that was just like a really cool experience. It also taught me some things like I don't want to teach elementary school kids. But yeah, then I was just kind of off the whole school thing when I got out, and now seeing just like how bad teachers have it.
Yeah.
So for myself personally, like as an individual, I'm very happy I avoided it. But also I'm very sad I avoided it because I think I would have been a good teacher and maybe could have helped some people in a world where teachers are kind of being pushed out by shitty systems.
Yeah. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Yeah.
Well, now we're coming to the hard-hitting questions as we come to the end of this segment. What inanimate object would you be best friends with were it sentient?
My computer. Not close. And I love it very much. It is very close to me. I definitely spend a bunch of time at my computer, and that's how I interact with most people these days. So
myself included.
Yeah.
What's going to happen for you when you need to like redesign? Is this going to be like one of those things where the chassis is going to stay the same and like the parts are going to slowly shift over time? It'll still be your baby, or are you like when it dies you'll get a new one and bury out back and give it the proper Viking send off? How is this horrific tragedy transpire?
Probably the second one. I put this one together about 5 years ago. And it's still going pretty strong. Good enough. I splurged a bit at the time so it could last a while. But I'm also the type of person who like definitely is not very good at like upkeeping their hardware. I don't clean it enough. Like there's definitely like fuzz inside it that probably needs to be wiped off. So as much as I love the thing, I also treat it badly. Which is, I guess, just kind of common for.
Yeah,
I'm just like very bad at keeping things in like tidy order and stuff. So I'm much more of the all right, it's time. Let's do the whole new thing, so I can just like start from scratch and maybe update and keep this one better than this one that's like kind of old and dusty and
Do you have any media, whether it be book, graphic novel, TV show, or movie that you've been putting off that is like next on your to consume list that you just can't wait to break open?
Oh, I mean, there's so many shows that I wish I would watch. I struggle to watch TV. I don't know, something about it. But there's so many good stories. There's some. What is the next one? One that I really want to see. Probably like Better Call Saul.
It is very good.
I've heard it's only great. Yeah. And, I'm also the type of person, I generally won't watch a show until it's done.
Yeah.
So.
I think that one is done, though, for the record.
It is done now.
Yes.
So it finished sometime last year.
Yeah.
So I'm like, kind of want to watch it. Maybe will. Most of my TV and media watching used to occur when I was flying to events. And I would fly, every weekend, every other weekend, 3 weekends a month. And I would be on a plane for, 4 to 6 hours each time. And that's when I would watch TV. So like I just don't do that as much as I used to.
When you used to do that for events, would you rewatch old shows as like a kind of comfort thing, or would you watch new shows trying to broaden your horizons?
New shows every time. It's not close. I almost never rewatch or replay anything. I am all about the new experience. There's so many awesome things that exist that something has to be really, really special for me to ever want to re-experience it. There's like a couple shows like that. Usually I like rewatch those because I'm with other people that have not watched them. And I'm like, I really, really like this thing. Please watch it.
But comfy blankets.
Look, that's not. I don't know if I'm weird, but I really, really like it when shows or media or games leave me upset. I don't want to feel good when I'm done.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm definitely the type of person. I I don't like love Marvel movies because they're very predictable. That's not what I
Sure.
want. I want unpredictable,
You want The
potentially
Wire.
painful. Yeah, I've never watched The Wire, but I know a lot about it, so that's probably the place.
That's a good scene view. There's a lot of there's a lot of annoyance, like well crafted, but it just leaves you with it's not a bad taste in your mouth, but you're just like because like damn it. All right. Well, lastly, before we throw it to a commercial break, if you could have the listeners of this podcast hear one song of your choosing, which would it be?
The song would be Dear McCracken by Bug Hunter. It's a really great song, especially if you traveled a lot like me. That's kind of what the song is about, or a little bit. It's about being on a plane. It's just really kind of wholesome and cute and really well put together for kind of just being a bit of an indie thing when it came together. So really love it.
Sweet. With that, we're going to throw it to our first break. Feel free to stick around and enjoy this totally real commercial, or take a minute to enjoy Dear McCracken by Bug Hunter. Or if you really wanted to hear a song from a previous episode, check out the playlist on Spotify, Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves podcast, Song Rex. It's a long title, I know. Don't worry, there's a link in the description. Either way, see you in a jiffy. Do you ever find yourself sitting around with an emptiness inside your soul or larger than preferred vacuous space? Would you like to change that? I thought so. Now introducing Stuff. For when you have nothing to do but important things. Stuff. For when you're lacking personality and intrigue. Stuff. When the world has taken a pickaxe-sized chunk out of your heart. Stuff. And if Stuff no longer fulfills these needs, please don't hesitate to look into our life-enhancing product, Addiction. Welcome back, folks. So I'm here with Aaron, and Aaron, what is your passion that you've brought with you today?
My passion today is game development. Something I've done for a couple of years now, working at Riot Games, and is definitely something I've cared about, and what I've kind of really wanted to do for a long time before that. It was always my goal. Playing Magic was like, someday I will turn this into helping make a game or making a game of my own. So
when do you think you first noticed that playing Magic?
That's tough. I don't know. I was always the type of person who really enjoyed bringing and showing games to people as much as I enjoyed playing them.
Can't confirm. Dan.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And playing with kids growing up, I was always the one who was like trying to like corral people into a game with rules. Whenever, being kids, you all just like throw things into the wind and like, no, I'm stronger than you. I have 2 guns. Silly things like that. And I was always like, no, we need rules, because rules make things better. We need to come together. So I guess some point along there.
What was the first game that you tried to make?
First game I tried to make. So I think a lot of that really early exploration of like making games came from like Magic, basing off of Magic, trying to come up with like formats within Magic, or build special weird cube types, or like things that are, making a game within a game.
Let's roll this back just a skosh, as this is not a Magic podcast, although plenty of people who listen to it are Magic players. For those that aren't, Cube is a format in which you draft a deck as opposed to come with your own. Drafting is a format wherein you are given a pack of, theoretically, you sit around a table with 7 other persons. You open up a booster pack. In this case, the pack is created from a card pool made by the creator, in this case, Aaron. And you open it up, you take 1 card, and then you pass the first round of drafting, you pass to the left. So you're sitting in a circle, so you get the pack from the person to your right who's passing left, until you each pick a card until there are no more cards. And then for the next, you do this 3 times, do 3 different packs. The next pack goes to the right, and the last pack goes to the left. After that, you take the cards you drafted, and the kind of creation ingredients isn't quite the right word. The building blocks isn't right? I don't know. You put land in the deck. I don't know how to typify. How did you say? How would you say land without using like Magic lexicon?
Resources.
Resources. There we go. You put the necessary resources to do the things that your deck requires into your deck, and then you play games versus friends as opponents, and that's the format. It's a lot of fun, and most of the time, cubes are designed with each one being singular. So you can't end up with a deck where you have 5 of the same card like you can in other formats. There are usually like 360 to 500 something-ish different unique cards that you're drafting in. So each experience has similarities, but is usually quite different, which makes a lot of like replayability. Did I leave anything out?
No, I think that's a really base level thing there. But I think you actually lead into some great conversation with a lot of the things you said, which is you made a lot of base level kind of assessments or assumptions about what is cube and what is drafting. Because there's so many rules within that can change. And that's kind of where like game development or game design comes in. It's like, can you get something different that captures a different feeling or is interesting in a different way than the normal Magic by changing any of those things? Magic has done this too. They have formats where you draft 2 cards at a time or play with groups. Instead, you said play against one friend. There are games where you play against groups of friends at a time while drafting. And that was kind of the stuff I always liked to explore at the time. My first things was like, what rule can I change that maybe makes a different experience or that is fun? Fun wasn't actually always the outcome, but usually, that's often the case. Really, a lot of design is starting like, what is something that sounds interesting or satisfying to do that could be fun? And you try the thing and see if it is fun. And fun is like secondary to interesting or satisfying at like a very starting level. But yeah, so I did a lot of that stuff. Some of those I still have. So that was cool and a fun time. And
do you have a favorite standout, kind of different version or Magic creation from when you were younger?
The standout is the one that I still have because it was the most functional and that I like got people to play with me. I have a cube that is called I call it Type 4, which is a term I got from other people. So for Magic, that is a format name. People used to call the standard Magic format Type 2. And I don't know why this one's called Type 4, but it is. And in this format, you have infinite mana or infinite resources. So you play your cards for free with some other rules around that about when you can play them or how you can play them and stuff like that. And it's really interesting to take a game like Magic or any card game that uses a resource mana system, either Magic, Hearthstone, Runeterra that I work on, any of those games, and take out that core system of mana. What does that game look like without this thing that is inherently like the biggest balancing factor and where everything is kind of turns around? And what do you get? And you get kind of just a different silly type of game where you're getting to play giant things repeatedly and doing these big explosive effects. And it's like a really condensed form of, pretty complex game, but pretty exciting and powerful. And that's really cool.
That's so awesome. That's so cool that how long ago did you create it that you still have it?
I've had my first Type 4 cube was made. I must have been 15, I think.
Oh wow!
At some point, that one got dismantled, and I rebuilt it, and then I lost it literally for a year. I found it. It was in my mom's trunk somehow, and I don't remember putting the box in there, but it was there for like a year, and I thought I had just lost this thing. And then ever since then, I've had it. So I've had this one for at least 7-8 years, working on it, changing things, moving cards around. And yeah, I would. It's not for everybody because it is very different than like regular Magic, but it is a thing that people that really like it really, really like it, and it's a lot of fun. So it's like probably my biggest creativity point within the world of Magic that exists.
That's so cool. So you do that. What's the first non-Magic game that you attempted or made?
I have never being made is such an interesting term because it's really hard to tell when a game is like done when it goes from just like idea to paper or something like that. I have like fleshed out rules and things for very simple games that are not fun, so no one ever played them. But those games were like done.
Yeah. What was the first non-Magic game that you made that you enjoyed showing or playing with people? How about that?
I think the most interesting thing I started making that it never got finished. This is the most one I like talk to people about because I think it was the most complex. Is I don't know if you have you ever played a legacy style board game? And if not, I will gladly go into it. What that means.
I have not.
So, a legacy style board game. I believe the first one that came out with that title was Risk Legacy. I think most people know Risk. It's the really basic war game with dice. Risk Legacy is a Risk game where after each game concludes, or during the game, you will do things in the game that will permanently impact the game going forward. So often legacy games have things like stickers that you apply to the board or to your character card, or the box will come with sections that are closed off and they say do not open until after you finish your third game. And you open those things up and there are whole new rules and new cards or new characters or things inside them, and it changes the way the game is played. And sometimes there are good things like after one person wins their third game, give them this bonus card that's hidden in this pouch. And sometimes it's like after a person wins their third game, give them this negative because they've been winning too much. And there's stuff like that going on. So it's a really, really cool experience. You play those games generally with the same group repeatedly. And you craft this narrative of like, oh, since we had this really big battle here, now that place is damaged and moving through there is harder. So now that location, I hope it wasn't a choke point because now moving is really tough, and stuff like that grows and builds. The thing I kind of worked on for a little bit that I thought was really cool, and I don't know if I want to say I like dropped it or if I finished it. I just kind of stopped working on it for a bit. Was the idea of a 1v1 legacy card game. And the idea was that as the game progressed, as you played games with this person, new cards would appear, different things would happen. It was kind of like a medieval based, there would be like weather could occur during some games, or, you would have to pick which soldiers to send into each battle as you fought over like this map. And the card game aspect of it was that you could buy cards with your whatever winnings from the battle, and you could buy specific cards that would help counter the cards your opponent had bought the previous time. So as your deck would change and you would make purchases, your opponent's deck would change and they would make purchases, and it would be a constant battle of kind of fighting against each other. They get these new things, so you get the things that counter those things, so you get this new thing, and eventually you kind of end up with someone winning the war or whatever. But that was kind of the overarching idea. The harder parts, I think I came up with some really cool overarching legacy style mechanics that would be really cool. But honestly, making a card game from scratch, really, really hard. There's a lot of things that go into making a card game. And if you can kind of just base it off of the existing ones pretty easily. If you want to do like a basic mana system like Magic or Hearthstone, where you have your resources and those let you play your cards, that's not too bad. But if you want to be doing other things, it gets tougher because there's a lot of card games and a lot of ways you can do things. And I mean, card games are just objects. What can you do with an object? Anything. Whatever the object does whatever you want it to do. So the space is pretty big.
So how many times did you get people to play that? Was that something that you got to play a fair amount with, or was that
not a ton? I played it mostly with my partner and the friends, family that lived with. Just a couple games and trying. Mostly it was one of those things that I knew to do it right would take a lot of time. And it's one of those things that kind of got cut off by getting hired at Riot. Because it's a thing once you get, there's the saying, don't turn your passion into a job or you'll work every day of your life.
Yep.
Which is kind of true, especially for a creative art that is, making games. So I would work, I go to work and I make a game and I talk a lot with people there, and I've learned so much working with these people. Me approaching that game now would be 100 times better than I would have approached it 5 years ago. Absolutely, no doubt in my mind. But yeah, it's just one of those things that I kind of put down. I maybe will pick it back up again. I've found more inspiration from different games that are kind of in a similar space that I think are interesting. So
speaking of working at Riot, how did you, because this is your first job in game design, correct? Okay. How did you go about getting that job in game design? Did you just show them games that you had done? What was the whole entire process like? If you can get into it.
Yeah, I can at least definitely like the beginning of it. I was not initially hired as a game designer exactly. I was hired as a member of the game analysis team, which, for those of you that do know Magic, is very similar to Wizards' play design team. What that kind of means is I was not like designing mechanics and stuff from scratch. I was at the end of a set's pipeline in like the final design phases, really helping refine ideas and refine like balance and making sure things were satisfying while still balanced and like trying to find the levers there. So for my first, I was hired for that through being fairly well articulated, because a big part of the job is being able to communicate, and also like knowing Magic very well and knowing a card game very well, and showing that I talk, I've played a bunch of card games. I feel like I'm reasonably well knowledge in a bunch of those spaces. So I got hired by someone, recommended me through knowing them. I got an interview, talked about card games, and I was hired for that position. And I did that position for the first 2 years I was at Riot. Then after those 2 years, that whole time I was pushing to move to game design over that position because I wanted to work on things more from the beginning and kind of craft some of my own ideas rather than helping refine other people's. Totally. That's probably for the best I didn't, because you learn a ton just refining other people's ideas about what works and what doesn't.
Totally.
But for the past year, I've been doing more of the other design stuff and working on that. And
so cool.
Working on more things from the beginning and creating ideas, and that's really fun too. Just like working on a game like Legends of Runeterra, League of Legends and the Runeterra IP has just so many characters that are very special to somebody. Mm-hmm. Almost everyone who plays League has like a champion or two that they really care about. And it's like, how do you make that in a card game that hopefully still catches what those people love about that character, but in a completely different form, while also being functional and balanced in a card game? And it's like a pretty interesting and fun puzzle, especially as someone who never played League before getting hired.
That's so cool. So is that adage true? Do you feel like you are overworking yourself because you're doing what you love, or is it everything in a bag of chips?
It's definitely like, I think there are some days where the work only works because you're passionate. Mm-hmm. It's a job that kind of requires you to care, because you are making a game for people, and everyone has different opinions about what makes the best game for the most people. Because no one knows for sure. What makes a great game is such a vague idea. Now, there are some baseline rules about things that help and can guide and stuff like that, but like, what is a good game? A good game can be anything to a person.
Yeah.
Games I love, people will hate. So it is a lot of discussing, arguing, maybe not arguing, but heated conversation about why this card should be this way, or why we should spend our resources going this direction, or why we should do this and this and this. And at the end of the day, if you don't care about the game that you're making, or you don't care about the players that you're like arguing for, then you just don't have a real reason to argue. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's definitely like, I put a lot of passion into it. It's required. Yeah.
It's pain and suffering that's worth the cost.
Most of the time. Sometimes you just don't give a shit because there's some burnout to that of just having these same conversations over and over again, or arguing why you think something is a good idea or a bad idea. Ultimately, you can just be in deadlock. You and this other person can just ground level not agree, and someone has to make the call. And it's usually whoever's in the charge of that product or that set or whatever. They get the call, and you're just like, all right, don't care about that anymore. Gotta back off of it. I cannot spend more energy fighting this battle because there are so many other things that matter. And sometimes you need to take that time to recharge. Like, all right, today I'm not gonna care. I'm just gonna go with what people say. Because honestly, it usually doesn't matter. I can argue with someone so my face turns red about a change. But at the end of the day, each little change is only so much in the grand scheme of this game that's played by a million people or whatever, doing a thing.
Yeah, so. unless it's like a main mechanic or like choke point that all parts flow through. It's only going to make a minor difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's even stuff like a mechanic. A mechanic being very good is important because that is a big part of a set. People come for the new mechanics and the new cool things. But ultimately, like, unless it's broken and, like, destroys the game, if a mechanic just isn't fun or kind of sucks, people just don't play with it. Which sucks for us because we want people to play with the new things and want to come back and, like, keep playing the game. But it's like if something sucks, it's like, all right, that sucked. We learned better. Let's not do that again. Next time we'll make something great. And you just move on and do the great thing next time.
For anybody that is interested in getting involved in game design and game creation, what would you like if you were talking to your younger self or somebody who's like, I want to do that when I grow up, what would you tell them?
So there's a couple things. I think there's some like really great resources that exist nowadays that did not exist back then. Thanks to YouTube. There's some really good YouTube channels. I enjoy Game Maker's Toolkit. I think that one's pretty popular. I think it's done. Gentleman's name's Mark Brown. He does a good show just kind of breaking down game ideas, like what makes a game function or not function, and why he thinks designers made the choices they did in one way or another. Because, as I said, making a game, there's no right answer sometimes. It's you can make this thing better, but at the cost of this other thing. And is that cost worth it in a lot of those decisions? So those resources are great. The other two big pieces of advice I would give are just start making things. Absolutely just start making things. I did not just start making things enough. Which is why
I would argue that for every form of creation, for the record. Don't wait, make.
Right.
I had the ideas for podcasts. It's 2023. I started 2021. I think I had ideas for podcasts in probably 2015, 2016. And I waited 5 years. And I'm not sorry I'm doing it now, but I could have been doing it for 5-6 more years.
Right. Yeah. I think that happens a lot. Always make. You don't have to show. You can just make. And sometimes if you think there's something you want to show it. But the idea, the creativity that comes from creation and the learning that comes from creation is pretty high if you are actively trying to learn while you're doing it. Think about why you're doing the things you're doing and think about what you could change, especially in games. Some of the greatest games ever made come from the idea of like, oh, here's this really great game. What if I changed this thing that seems really deeply fundamental, but isn't? Or maybe it is, but when you change that thing, you get something else that's also really cool in a completely different way. I mean, that's just like I think the shooter genre over time and the way shooters have changed in all the various directions is like a really great tree of just changing things that are slightly fundamental to each game and making something new.
I agree, but also please make more team deathmatch games.
Yeah.
There's literally, I kid you not, up until this year, there's a couple like game like Apex and this is a personal gripe, like Apex and Overwatch, up until they did it, there was one major market, like I don't remember how, like the star ranking or whatever, like there was one major game that did a team deathmatch mode. So if you wanted to play that, you played Call of Duty, or you just didn't get to play team deathmatch anymore. which I'm glad they're making different versions of games, but it's my favorite mode of the game. Please, people, make more so I don't have to just play only Call of Duty. All right,
Well,
sorry.
look, you could join the other great Exploding Riot game, Valorant, if you're into that type of team deathmatch game.
That's not team deathmatch, though.
Not
the way
same.
I like it, I guess.
No, that's more tactical CS:GO kind of base.
Exactly, and it's a great game. I not in any way to poo on Valorant. Valorant's a great game, but I am so bad at games that I like to, with my friends, after a long day at work, I like to kill, die, repeat via a Tom Cruise movie catchphrase. That's all I want to do is just like shoot, get shot, die, come back, do it again. Valorant's great, but it also requires skill. So when you die, you have to like wait a minute probably, and that's just too long.
Yeah, I mean I think you really hit the nail on the head. There are like very distinct types of gamers. There are a lot of people that are in that space like you that are very different from me. When I want to play a game, I also want something that's like generally pretty intense or like takes a lot of my attention. So I tend to enjoy games like Valorant more than shooters like Call of Duty. Though I played a ton of Call of Duty in high school, Black Ops 1.
I love how you mixed up the two ways of referring to the game. You said Call of Duty.
Call of Duty, yeah, classic. So yeah, and that's a really tough thing to like fight through as a designer, is like making the game that I love versus the game that I know a lot of other people will love. Because I like very specific things, but there are more generalist things that maybe more people would enjoy.
So that's an interesting thing, because it's the same as... So there's this ethos in filmmaking, which is what I went to school for, is make the movie that you would watch. How does that translate for, like the game creation equivalent would be make the game you want to play?
So I think it depends on where you are. So when I'm working at a company, a place like Riot, that is a game made by a ton of people. Runeterra is still a smaller team than League or Valorant, but like, this is not my game. We are trying to make a game that as many people as possible would enjoy. And there's a lot of things about gamers that I don't connect with entirely. I do at a level, but I am a very competitive gamer. I'm a very experienced gamer. I notice patterns from game to game. A lot of games share very similar controls. Like a lot of shooters, the buttons almost do the same things. Yep. And I know that. So when I am designing a thing, whether it be, I've never tried to make a shooter, but if I was to make a shooter, I would probably use very similar controls unless I had a reason not to. So in my mind, the controls would probably be very easy. But to someone who has never played a shooter, those controls are very hard, even though most people know them. Or other things like, I am the type of person who will read every single lore dump in a game. I think my favorite game of all time is a, potentially popular answer to some people these days. I love Disco Elysium, which is an almost entirely narrative RPG. It's very political and kind of tries to be very smart and witty and is very funny. And that game is literally just reading a novel. It's a novel. You talk to people and those conversations are super long and it's just repeating a bunch of things. And that's awesome to me. Making a game, you learn that so many people read absolutely nothing. Nothing.
Check, please.
Nothing. They won't even read the rules. They just start playing. And that's wild to me. Yeah. It is so hard as a designer to make something that is like, you really have to put a lot of effort into making those things as intuitive as possible, because people aren't going to read. And if they don't read, the only way they learn is they do the thing wrong and they have a bad time because they didn't read, and then maybe they quit. And that's the worst outcome. So,
well, I don't do that last part. I would just do it again until I bang my head through the wall.
Right. There are people like that, and that's how you get into competitive gaming in some ways, that bang your head in the wall mindset. That was tangential to your initial point of like, what is like making the game for yourself. I think when you are just like making things, like
Mhm.
just kind of by yourself or with one or two other people. And it's just like a small kind of independent thing. Really, you should make the thing you want to make, because so much of it is a work of passion.
Mhm.
Passion will make you make a better product. Passion, at least to some extent, and passion will make you want to keep doing it. It'll make you, when the things are hard and you're doing the really, really boring parts, like refining the shitty parts of your code, or just staring at like how this character jumps and moving it ever so slightly to make it feel a little bit better in one way or another, or doing things like, yeah, those moments that aren't quite the fundamental parts. You come in with this cool idea for a game, and there's so much fun and cool exploration, and then you get to the refining process sometimes, you're like, shit, this is actually work. And you need the passion to get through that. You need to care, and you need to want to make that thing. So it's definitely important. And the indie game industry sometimes has huge breakout hits because of people making the thing they really want to make, and it's very good.
So, did you create? Are you the creator of Runeterra, or did you come on after the project had already been made?
I came on after. I actually came on right as the game was coming out of beta.
Okay.
So I did not create any of the initial rules or anything like that. Runeterra was in development for quite a while. The game changed quite a few times, as games do. Another lesson: if you feel like there is something fundamentally wrong with your game, change it if you can. Runeterra changed a bunch of its rules and systems and things over time that are before me. So yeah.
So, of the stuff that you've created in Runeterra, how much would you say is what you like, what you'd want to play, that kind of create the game you'd like to play, versus what you had to do for, this is what your boss asked for you to change, this is what the people wanted, that you're kind of like, that sucks, but okay, here you go, children, here's the cookies that you wanted, not the vegetables you should be eating.
Yeah, the cookies versus vegetables thing is a good comparison, but either way, the I don't know. I think almost all of it is for me to some extent. Even if I don't particularly love those things, archetypes or mechanics or cards that I think could have been done a little differently and been more fun or more balanced or more satisfying. Those are all trade-offs, but ultimately, like, the thing I enjoy too is a breadth of creativity and a breadth of options.
Mm-hmm.
So playing against these people that are playing decks I maybe don't like is actually a good experience for me. Because that's still just something different. If it was only things I liked, I would only play against those things, and maybe that's not as interesting, or over time gets worse. Talking about like things I particularly like, really, really enjoy playing, I'd say like 5% of the archetypes release are ones I'm like, I love this. I want to go on live and play this myself after we release it, which I think is a pretty high amount. Yeah. It's hard to love everything. And there are certain things that are going to be for me. I'm a dirty, competitive spike when it comes to games. So I love the decks that give me lots of choices or like feel really powerful, and I do a thing that feels like cheating. Which, I mean, some of that everyone loves. Everyone loves feeling like they're cheating to some extent.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What would you say is the biggest misconception about game creation by the wider world?
That doing anything is easy. I don't actually know if this is true. This is the first thing that comes to my mind, and that's because I deal with reddit.com. But a lot of people there's a lot of assumptions with things like bugs or something is unbalanced, debatably unbalanced. Unbalanced is a weird word because balance is balance is not as simple as everything is like winning equal amounts or whatever. That's a different topic though. But people, we will have a bug that's like relatively bad, or we'll have a card that's definitely too good and is maybe causing a little bit of a problem. And changes for those things won't happen as fast as players think they should. Players will be like, it's been a week. Why is this thing not fixed? Everyone knows it's broken. And making a game like that, it just takes time. There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of people you have to talk to make something happen. There's a lot of balancing time. You know, we're working on a lot of things, and we factor in time for bugs and for fixing or paying attention to live balance changes and things like that. But sometimes the work that we had scheduled actually takes longer than we think, and we have less time to work on those things, or there are more bugs than we expected. So we got the really high priority ones, but not the medium priority ones, which maybe to this person, this medium priority one that impacts this one card is actually really, really painful for them. And then they're very upset about it, but also like that impacted less people. So it got left. In a perfect world, we would be able to do way more of those things, but time is just so short.
Yeah.
And there's so many things going on and so many moving parts to making a big game like Runeterra, where, you know, you have incredible art and realization moments, and, you know, we're making cosmetics and these cards, and someone's writing narrative flavor text for all these things, and, you know, you never have enough people to do those things because everyone who works on it is always really ambitious. So everyone wants to do more than they can. So you always end up scoping more work than you actually can do, kind of. Usually find a way to get it done.
It's like when you go to Disneyland, you're like, I'm going to do all these rides, and then you leave having gone on 3.
Right. You have these goals, and a big part of that is like figuring out what you can cut back on by the time you're getting to the finish line. But yeah, it's definitely those things that seem like they should be quick and easy. They just aren't.
Just like everything else in life that you assumed, like, oh yeah, I'll just go do my dishes. That'll take 10 minutes. Drags feet for 3 hours and then does it in 20 minutes.
Yep. Just true for everything.
On the flip side, what's your favorite non-obvious aspect to game making that just warms your heart, that you wish more people knew about?
There's one I wish people knew about. Is weird. I think people know that there's something very, maybe not creative people, or people who haven't done a creative work or made something on their own that they've shared. You know, people make creative works and keep it to themselves. But creative works that you share and you see those people getting joy from it, or someone caring, even those people on Reddit that are angry, it is interesting in a way because those people clearly care and are passionate in their own way, in some way. And that's awesome. That is awesome to know. I have touched this thing. I've made cards. I've made cards from the ground up that someone played with and cared about, and it made them happy, and that made their day. And that is just such a wild feeling. And the opportunity to be able to do that is crazy, because there are so few things you can do in this world that feel like they have a chance to reach somebody almost anywhere. But making a mostly global game like Runeterra that is getting people in South America and Europe and Asia and Australia and Africa, that have access to these things.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
That is so beautiful. And on that lovely note, what is your preposterous peeve?
Yeah, that's a good follow-up. I mean, my peeve is, it's maybe a little specific, but I get really upset by people that play videos on their phones or computers or laptops or whatever that I can hear, but I can't see the screen. So things like TikTok or YouTube videos or Netflix or something I'm supposed to be watching. If I can't watch it, but I can hear it, that drives me mad.
So it's literally, if somebody was sitting in a chair facing you, looking at their phone, listening to something, that would bother you. If they were turned around, it wouldn't.
It would not bother me as much. And maybe it's because I'm nosy, but what happened is I will get distracted and start watching the thing if I can see it.
I love how much you just know yourself. You're like, I'm just nosy, but
I don't know if that's entirely it. But it's kind of like if there's something that I can be hearing, I get distracted really easily, or like my attention gets caught between things. So if I'm like hearing a TV show, but I'm trying to do my own thing, like play on my phone or read a book, I can't do both. I have to. So I'm just like getting negative pleasure from both things at once, where I'm just like failing to do either. So but in the situations where like someone's show is on and I can watch it, at least I'm like generally getting pleasure from watching their thing, even if I'm not able to focus on my thing as well. So it definitely ends up being where like when people do that, I either have to put in my own headphones or I have to leave. Like I haven't ridden a bus in quite a few years, but that used to suck. People would play things on their phones, and music is different. I feel like I can avoid music, or like music doesn't bother me as much because it's not something you have to watch. So I know I'm getting like the whole experience by just listening.
Sure.
So I wonder how much of that is like my brain knows there's more and thus needs to know it versus like, I don't know. People annoy me for being inconsiderate. I don't.
When did you first notice this being an issue?
I think I really, really started to notice it a lot when I started living with more people. Growing up, I kind of always had my own space a little bit, or at least by the time I was in middle school. So like if something was going on, I just always just went to my room anyway, and I just kind of shrugged about it. But when I started living with my girlfriend in Orlando, she kind of did that. We had like a roommate. So those things just kind of happened more in the living room. Or when I moved in with my current partner and girlfriend, and like the polycule situation I had there, I lived with 5 people at one point. And there was just a ton of people. And, you know, there's not a lot of space, and you're just around people often when you have 5 people living in a trailer. So that those things would just come up all the time, especially my partner just doesn't think about it. She loves watching TikToks now and will just turn things on when I'm there, and it just grates on me. And I feel so bad because I can't ask her to stop because she's just in her living room watching a thing, and I was just here, and it's like, you know, I shouldn't be upset at you, but I just am. I'm leaving. This is not reasonable.
Do you have a story of when this peeve of yours shown the boldest?
I think the time in my head, I did not like share this with her, but I was sitting there and I was on my laptop and I was playing Magic. I was playing a Magic Online, the tournament of some kind. And she was sitting there watching something. And I just like, my brain did this thing where I was like playing my match, and then I got distracted by her sound, and her sound took me so far out of my match. I was like frustrated and just like forgot I was playing and like loaded up a different thing. And I just started like doing this other thing for 5 minutes, just like frustrated. I put in my earphones and like heads down. And I just like snapped back to reality. I was like, wait a second, what the hell was I doing? And went back to my match and was like, oh shit, sorry opponent, you waited 7 minutes for me. My bad. Anyway, I don't know if I have ADHD. I've never been diagnosed, but I think there's a good chance.
I love it. I love how that's the culmination of your peeve.
Yeah.
Oh, and with that medical hilarity tidbit, we're going to head to our second ad break. But don't go anywhere, because when we get back, Aaron is going to enter the lightning round. Ooh, aha. Have you ran out of new stuff to do, rendering your life wholly unsatisfying? Do you have too much time on hand and have no idea what to do with it? Or are you just plain over this existence and wish for a plane with more intrigue? Might I introduce you to Addiction? Addiction deals with all these problems and more. Had to meet your significant other's parents and would rather not? Addiction. Had to go to work for the 3rd day in a row? Addiction. Rent? Why not? Addiction. Addiction cannot be held responsible for your choice of choosing to imbibe in addiction. Any and all life-destroying fallout as a result of addiction cannot be legally pinned on addiction. But you're more than welcome to try. And we're back. Aaron, are you ready to enter lightning round?
The lightning round.
What if I'm not ready?
Too bad.
That's what I thought. Yep.
All right, put however much time it takes to bake this cookie on the clock. Aaron, is there a price for you to give up your passion forever?
Yes, definitely.
Make the food or do the dishes?
Dishes.
Did you ever cheat on a test in school?
Absolutely. Who hasn't?
Are you out of touch, or is it the children who are wrong?
Definitely the children. Yeah.
Would you rather have your inner monologue sound like Gilbert Gottfried or Fran Drescher?
Gilbert Gottfried.
Would you rather read the cue cards while wearing the crown or live in a hovel and speak your mind?
Hovel. That's a tough one.
Is professional wrestling cool or lame?
Really, really lame. I'm sorry. Feel free to like things.
You're having the best day of your life. What happens next? Another amazing thing or something terrible?
Another amazing thing. Yeah, definitely.
Nick Cage, best or worst ever?
Best.
Do you create your own thoughts or do you just listen to them?
Listening more often than not.
Bears, Beats, or Battlestar Galactica?
Beats.
Are truth and reality the same thing?
No.
Cheese fries, an abomination or gift from God?
Gift. How can you hate cheese fries?
I didn't make that question. Do you believe in love at first sight?
No.
Are we simultaneously living in another dimension at this very moment?
Yes, probably.
Beatles or Elvis?
Beatles.
Would you rather the checkout line never had a line, or the fast food place always gave you a large fry when you asked for medium?
Checkout line. Absolutely.
Would you rather have the superpowers to travel into the vastness of space, or the darkness of the ocean depths?
Space. The ocean scares me, even if I had the superpower.
Same. Cake or pie?
Cake.
Would you rather have the top or bottom half of a mermaid? On your person, not just like in a jar. For the record.
Top, of course.
Could you eat 37 of your favorite food for $5,000 in a 1 hour time limit?
What's my favorite food? Probably not. Probably not.
That's not like I fucking knew. I was like, I don't know.
See, that's because the
way-
voices just go in my head. I don't. Yeah.
Either way, congratulations. You survived the lightning round. Whee! As a reward. Well, actually, first, before we move on, I, like many listeners at home, would like to now know, what is your favorite food that you couldn't eat 37 of in a 1 hour time limit for $5,000?
Yes, that was tough. That took a second. I think my. What is my favorite food? You know, I think the food I eat the most that I like a lot is probably just like good tacos. I think favorite food has a lot of things going on with it, but as far as price to quality to enjoyment ratio, tacos are really high up there.
I love that. Like, in your mind, there's this 4D graph being made. It's like tracking data.
Yeah, there's really nice things I've eaten. I've eaten like really nice, well-prepared, incredible steaks.
Chili Mac?
Chili Mac's pretty great. That one's definitely good on cost and taste ratio, and it makes me feel like garbage when I'm done.
As all good food should.
Yeah.
Yeah, 37 tacos in an hour would be an achievable ask, but definitely an ask.
Yeah, I think
How much is 5K? How much is 5K worth is the real question.
37's a lot. I think I could do 24-ish in an hour.
Love it. Love that. You're like, all right, no, here's the benchmark. Anything after that,
I mean, I would feel awful after 24. I think past 24 is when I start to get into like I'm probably gonna vomit and then lose.
Yeah.
So
in which case, double L. All right. Well, as a reward of accomplishing the lightning round, surviving, what lightning round question do you have to ask me and in turn be asked to feature guests?
So, is there a perfect piece of art or media or creative work, anything like that?
So when we talked about this before, there's an interesting word that you omitted that I'm curious, because I feel like it changes.
Maybe it did.
The question you asked me is, do I believe, like for me, is there one?
Is there such a thing? Yeah.
Yeah. But saying, is there such a thing, I feel like is different, right? I don't know. This is interesting because to me, as my person, there is stuff that I would never change a beat of. I think is amazing. Do I think there is such a thing in like an academic sense as perfect that couldn't be altered? I would say no, but to me, yes. Does that make sense, or am I just like
that makes
avoiding
sense.
the question? Okay, yeah.
No, I think that makes sense.
Like for me, I think there's some Edgar Wright movies. I think Pulp Fiction is perfect. There's some bangers out there that I think are legitimately perfect that I wouldn't change a single
So what
dot.
makes them perfect to you but not perfect in the general sense?
I wouldn't disqualify them as perfect. I think that there's just people like it's not objectively perfect, it's subjectively perfect.
Sure.
Is what I mean to say. And I guess it's like I don't feel like I'm qualified to weigh in on the objectivity of it, but for me, as far as I'm concerned, you know, it's like to each person everything is different. There's people out there that think, you know, pick a dumb canceled cartoon because it was mid as far as society was considered, but there's somebody out there who it's their favorite thing ever. You know, there's people that hear Freebird by Leonard Skinner and they're like, this is the peak of music. And there's other people that are like, this is garbage after they've heard it for the second time. And neither of them are wrong. It's just their opinion. I don't know.
Sure.
What do you think? Is there such a thing as perfect piece of art of media?
Yes. Yeah, there is. I think
it's called Runeterra.
Yeah, it's Runeterra. Actually, you know, as someone who makes it, I know it's definitely not perfect. No, a perfect piece of media is interesting. I think perfect. One of the ways I approach something like that is anything. Why was it made?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if something achieves that goal in the maximum % possible, then that's perfection.
Okay.
My musical answer for that is I think Born to Run, Bruce Springsteen, right?
Yeah, that is a banger.
I think that song is perfect.
A lot of people would agree with you on that one.
Yeah. Another one is Daft Punk's Get Lucky. I don't like that song, but that song is perfect.
I don't know if you were a fan of the franchise, but for me, Borderlands 2 and especially the DLC of Tiny Tina's Adventure is
very good.
Legitimately perfect.
Yeah,
I think especially
really
the DLC. Great. The DLC just like obliterates me every time. It hits both the highs and the lows of comedic plus drama, storytelling. It's everything to me.
Yeah, that Borderlands 2 is really great. That DLC is definitely one of the best DLCs of all time. I'm not sure I would say it's perfect myself, but it's a good one.
Shade!
Yeah.
Well, now that we can't conversate as friends anymore, I need to kick you out because of that hot take. Is there anything you want to plug? Shout-outs you'd like to give? Places people can find you or your content?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at RuneclawBarich. That's where I post all my
perfect Twitter handle.
Yeah, it's a good one. So that's where I post Riot stuff, the little that I post, and I talk about Magic and games and all those things.
Cool. Thank you so much for coming on today, Aaron. This is a blast.
Yeah, this was fun. I'm glad I could make it in.
Well, thank you, Aaron, for being my guest today, and a special thanks to my editor, Richard Ashford, and my composer, Joshua Gibbons. And thank you. Yes, you listening at home, wherever you found time to appreciate this. Time is the most precious commodity we have, and I appreciate you spending yours with us. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, or just share with a friend. Every little bit helps. Or if you already have and are out of episodes to listen to, don't worry. We put out a new episode every Monday at midnight on SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes at Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast. And a very special thanks are due to our patrons, Sabella Yellow. If you'd like to join said illustrious ranks and have your name read aloud, just head on over to patreon.com/Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast. And remember, folks, if days are numbered and songs are sung, at the end of the day, I think we've all won. So please stick around, because great things have only just begun.